More FPL. Today I want to talk about the players selected by most managers at the time of writing. We'll look at the top 3 players in each position, discussing how they performed last season, prospects for this season, and anything to watch out for. First, let's look at goalkeepers. The current most selected goalkeeper is Emilio Martinez of Aston Villa. Martinez was comfortably the top point scorer in his position last season, with an impressive 15 clean sheets, as well as saves leading to 27 bonus points. At 5.5 million, he's very much a premium goalkeeper this season, and in my opinion, he's the pick of the bunch. Villa have a great opening 3 fixtures to get your season off to a good start, particularly if you tend to wildcard early. Next up for goalkeepers is Robert Sanchez of Brighton. Along with many FPL managers, I was surprised when he came out of 4.5 million in the early price reveals, and he's been in my draft ever since. His points total may not look that impressive on the surface, but he only became first choice in mid-December, taking over from Matt Ryan. Since then, he hasn't looked back and comes into this season as number 1, with Ryan since leaving the club. If you combine his points with Ryan's, they total 138 with 13 clean sheets and 8 bonus points between them. Add to that the fact that Brighton's expected data was better than their actual data, we can expect that to be higher this time around. Lastly for goalkeepers is Ben Foster of Watford. Their number 1 is Daniel Bachmann, so he's simply a cheap bench option for those managers who'll be starting their first choice goalkeeper every match. If you pick Martinez for 5.5 million, you should have a 4 million keeper as backup, since any more than 9.5 million in your goalkeepers is too much for your budget. In my opinion, Sanchez is a strong enough option to use the same strategy. You could also pair Sanchez with another 4.5 million option and rotate depending on who has the easiest fixture in any given game week. My current strategy is Sanchez with a 4 million backup. Next, let's look at defenders. The current most selected defender is Luke Shaw of Man United. I think he was fairly near the top anyway, but he's probably had a bit of a boost due to his fantastic form at the Euros, scoring in the final and laying on 3 assists before that. He had a brilliant second half of the season, being a near ever-present in United's lineup and creating a lot of chances in the attacking third. United also have a kind start and he should rack up some good early points. One thing to look out for is his pre-season minutes, with England having reached the Euros final. Next up for defenders is Wesley Fofana of Leicester. Like with Robert Sanchez, along with many FPL managers, I was surprised when he came out at 4.5 million in the early price reveals. That's cheaper than all his defensive teammates, and he's been in a lot of my drafts ever since. He doesn't offer much of an attacking threat with just a single assist last season, but the Foxes did have a decent defence. He missed some matches through injury, but should be a starter, particularly if Rodgers elects to line up with a back 3. Lastly for defenders is Trent Alexander-Arnold of Liverpool. He's the most expensive defender in the game, but in my opinion, he'll be well worth it. He was just behind his teammate Andrew Robertson last season, mainly due to missing a few games. With the likely return of Virgil van Dijk for the start of the season, we can expect more clean sheets this time around, and the Reds also have a great run of fixtures to start. One thing to look out for is his pre-season minutes, having missed the Euros through injury. Another player worth mentioning is Ruben Dias of Man City, owned by 26.2%. He's one of the few players to be nailed on to start, and City can keep clean sheets against anyone, despite their tricky start. Next, let's look at midfielders. The current most selected midfielder is Mo Salah of Liverpool. He's been consistently one of the top scoring midfielders in the league since his return to England, and last season he was third behind just Bruno Fernandes and Harry Kane. He remains on penalties, so there's no reason to think he'll be less of a threat this season. He's also a strong captaincy shout, which I discussed in another video. Liverpool confirmed he won't be going to the Olympics, so he'll be available for Game Week 1. Next up for midfielders is Bruno Fernandes of Man United. He's been a revelation since he joined the league and was overall top point scorer last season. Like some FPL managers, I was thinking that he may be the most expensive player in the game this season, but he actually comes in at just below Salah and Kane. He remains on penalties and has a good share of other set pieces, so there's no reason to think he'll be less of a threat this season. He's also a strong captaincy shout as well. Portugal got knocked out in the round of 16 of the Euros, so he'll get plenty of rest. Lastly for midfielders is Jack Grealish of Aston Villa. He currently looks like a great option if he stays there. He missed a fair amount in the second half of the season, but when fit and available was Villa's main creative force and racked up a huge amount of points. Villa also have a great opening 3 fixtures, so he could make a strong start. If he makes the move to Man City though, I think he becomes a massive rotation risk like every other City midfielder, barring maybe Kevin De Bruyne. He didn't play too many minutes for England, so should be well rested. Another player worth mentioning is Rafinha of Leeds, owned by 25%. Along with many FPL managers, I was surprised to see him come in at just 6.5 million. He wasn't first choice at the start of last season, but with a full season, he could be a steal at his price. Leeds have a tricky start, but have shown they can score against anyone. Finally, let's look at strikers. The current most selected striker is Ivan Toney of Brentford. He was top scorer in the Championship last season, with 33 goals in 48 games. It's always tricky to predict how players new to the league will translate their previous stats though. For example, top scorer in the Championship 19-20 season, Alexander Mitrovic, scored just 3 goals in 27 games. Second top scorer Ollie Watkins fared much better with 14 goals in 35 games. The Bees do have a relatively kind start in terms of fixtures, and there aren't too many good options around his price. Next up for strikers is Ollie Watkins of Aston Villa. He was 4th top scoring striker last season, and if he hadn't hit the woodwork so frequently, could have been even higher. With Grealish in the team, he was on the end of most of the chances Villa created, and if they don't sign anyone, he should start up front once again. Villa have also added Emiliano Buendia to their midfield, so Watkins should get even more opportunities to score. Lastly for strikers is Dominic Calvert-Lewin of Everton. He was 5th top scoring striker last season, and he should be nailed on to start in an Everton attack with strong early fixtures. New manager Rafael Benitez is seen as quite a defensive manager, but in his last season here with Newcastle, Salomon Rondon and Ayoze Perez both reached double figures. Everton have better attacking players in their ranks. He barely featured for England, so should be fresh to start the season. Another player worth mentioning is Harry Kane, owned by 27.8%. He was comfortably the top scoring striker last season, and if he goes to Man City, we could expect even more from him. I'd expect his ownership to skyrocket, and it'd be a fantastic captaincy option. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please add your own thoughts and follow-up questions in the comments, and I'll try to get through as many as I can. If you made it to the very end, please destroy the like and subscribe buttons and notification bell to get more FPL.